Bridger Aerospace out of Bozeman, Montana has 6 super scoopers and other important aircraft vital to aerial firefighting. You have likely seen them scooping out of a reservoir and dropping water directly onto a fire. Not what this very large air tanker is doing here. But they played a huge role in the Monroe Canyon Fire and responding to new wildfire starts, while the scoopers have been here in Utah. I spoke. How do you get here? How does that happen where you're able to get here to work with firefighters on the ground in Utah?
Yeah, great question. We're asked this one a lot. Our scoopers are all listed on a federal contract with the Forest Service. All of the states that know that we're available, all the incident commanders that know that we're available, request us when things happen like what Utah is seeing right now, to specifically use our assets on the fires because of how effective they are. And we've seen the demand increase for them as they show up in a state like Utah, do their work, and people see how they can continuously scoop and drop water and drop hundreds of thousands of gallons of water in a day and help ground firefighters do their job. So a lot of times these states are ordering us up through the federal contracts. We've also been seeing a lot of tailwinds on setting up state level contracts with specifically our surveillance aircraft. And a little bit of headway has been made on the scooper side as well. But, you know, it's one set of orders that go through multiple agencies to depend on, to decide where our assets go. So when things happen like the Monroe Canyon Fire, where I think you're in a state of emergency there in Utah, or were, to have our scoopers positioned there. And I think we've been there 9 days to continue to help the effort, because it's the most important, one of the most important fires in the country right now.
Has your company had conversations with the state of Utah?
Yeah, we have in the past. I think we've gone to some call when needed contracts specifically for surveillance. Every year at the end of the year, we have state level conversations to try to problem solve where states need assets, because for Bridger specifically, we want to help neighbors and in the West where we're located really guarantee what assets are available. And for us, if it's guaranteed work, we can make it more affordable. We can be pre-positioned. We can be effective at what we do, which is what we care about. So we have those conversations regularly and go to a state foresters conference every year to have conversations about what we can put in place for states specifically, so they don't have to deal with any sort of federal constraints on asset scarcity.
How does your scooper differ from the other scoopers that are on the market or out there that are perhaps a little different, because you have what's coined the super scooper, but there are smaller single engine scooper planes that are also working that same fire here in Utah just in the last few days. How does yours differ from those?
Yeah, and I'll start off by saying we're out there with a lot of our other fellow operators, we call them, and I try to stay away from competitors. We're friendly with all these guys. Everybody is a tool in the toolbox. We're alongside retardant dropping planes, which form a perimeter for fires and slower divert the direction of fires. With a lot of the fixed wing aircraft that drop retardant, we're outside with helicopters that drop water in very concentrated areas, and single engine scoopers, which are nimble and quick and can get in and do some damage. But for us, the super scooper is the most effective in terms of it can operate nearly anywhere. We don't need a retardant base. We don't need to land and fill up with a hose. The planes are huge. I'm sure you've seen them in person. They weigh nearly 24 tons. They can need about an open mile of water to scoop, and they take about 10 to 12 seconds to fill up 1,400 gallon tanks. But the beauty of them is, depending on the turn time, which I think for the Monroe Canyon Fire, we're about 10 minutes away on our turns from the fire and the lake we're scooping out of. We can continuously scoop and drop on one full tank of fuel, so about a 4-hour cycle, and we can drop hundreds of thousands of gallons a day. Typically they're flown in pairs, so just a very effective tool in putting out massive amounts of water, and the amount that we drop every load really maximizes thermal disruption, because it weighs about 12,000 pounds. So you can imagine, maybe not as much in Utah, but penetrating forest canopies, saturating fuel loads on the ground, and really suppressing the flames, either extinguishing them or slowing progression so the firefighters can get in and do their job. I mean, it's sad to see when anything happens that affects people their homes or threatens towns and communities. We're really happy to be a part of the effort there and glad that Utah's been very progressive in dispatching assets. I think there was many as 25 aviation assets on the fire. I think that coupled with the heroic efforts of the ground crews have really done a lot to prevent the encroachment of the fire on the town of Monroe, from what I've seen, and really the expansion has been northward, which still threatens some structures, but it's been a very strong effort on the state of Utah's coordination with the federal government. So great there. I think in terms of what people are seeing in increased intensity and duration of wildfires, I will point to things that are drafted currently in legislation and an executive order that was signed that really focus on nationally putting in place standards of cover, response times, and pre-positioning of assets so that fires are intercepted early when it matters in an initial attack scenario. And that's where our assets are really good at detecting and containing fires quickly and before they become something that's out of control. And so, for folks that see the devastation, realize that things are getting better and being managed more proactively, and things that aren't reported, like I think it was a little cottonwood fire just south of the Monroe Canyon Fire, was intercepted by ground teams, and we had 4 scoopers. We were with 2 other scoopers. We led the attack and put that fire out while it was 20 acres, and with the conditions that were prevalent at the time, it could have blown up into another major incident. So people are doing their best. There's a lot to coordinate unfortunately, when you see conditions like you guys have in Utah right now.
Well, Sam is right. That little cottonwood fire wasn't reported, but I was aware of it on Friday when we were driving back north from the Monroe Canyon Fire, and I looked down and I saw that the fleet of scoopers actually diverted to help with initial attack on that fire, and great job by everyone involved keeping that small. And yes, something like that typically doesn't make the news. Well, down in central Utah, crews are making more progress on the Monroe Canyon Fire. And thanks to everybody's hard work, there's still 1,300 personnel working on this thing. The fire has increased containment as of this morning's update at 18%. The flames have burned more than 66,000 acres, including some cabins. That structure damage, last we checked, was 14, according to the sheriff in Sevier County. Special shout out to the night shift firefighters, some of which I've talked to over the course of the last few weeks, who have done a considerable amount of work on this fire, taking advantage of the cooler temperatures and the higher humidity at night, kind of working as a good backstop and cleanup work there overnight. And just last night, firefighters worked a finish line around the southern edge of the Box Creek area that actually flared up a few days ago, prompting firefighters to get out of the Spike Camp where 2 of the divisions were staying. Right now, again, 1,300 first responders working in conjunction on this fire from all across the country. And just hours ago, generators rolled out of Wayne County now that the transmission lines damaged in the Monroe Canyon Fire are fully repaired. Great work by the Garcane Energy Cooperative. Not as big and highly talked about unless you live in central Utah. You know what Garcane's all about, but they're a smaller energy cooperative. They had a really rough night at one point, but after completing the major repair in just one day, the power in Wayne County and surrounding areas went out again. The supply line was down for about an hour, but once crews found the source, everything was restored again. And I had a chance to talk to them earlier this week. If you're interested in that conversation, find it on our YouTube page. They did a great job. There have been more than 700 wildfires this summer in the state of Utah, including 3 new ones in the last 24 hours. In all, 1,000 acres. Investigators say 510 of them were human-caused. The largest fire of the season, as we know it, the Monroe Canyon Fire, still burning in central Utah. And most of those new fire starts we mentioned, for some reason, every single day here, a lot of them are kept so small at like 1/10 of an acre. Great to highlight the impressive work from our local firefighters all across the state, keeping most of our fires small.